by the rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family, and welcome to another Tanakh review, Torah review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. The zip code is 11231. Thanking you all once again for tuning in and for making us a part of your early Shabbat listening to, who you listen to, and we appreciate everyone out there on the chat that continues to support. We're diligent in coming out to support this channel and supporting Nasik, Zurishaddai, and Yehudah in this endeavor and bringing forth a little bit of understanding and some understanding on the Torah and on the Tanakh. Giving due glory to the Most High, King of the universe, Yehudah, the King of all kings, the King of the universe. And we thank Him for our lives, and we thank Him for all that He continues to do for us in our lives, for His protection, for His guidance, and for the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that He's granted us. Also thanking all those who, like I said before, continue to support us and continue to help to make our channel grow. Today, also giving due respect to the leader of our congregation, even the spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel Ben Yissaskar, thanking the Creator for his life, and I pray that the Most High King of the universe be with him and protect him and strengthen him. And to the entire house of Yisrael, I bid to y'all in the tongue of our ancient forefathers, early Shabbat Shalom Aleichem, and pray that the Creator, the Most High, be with you all. As we do on a weekly basis, we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm not going to be here too long until it's time for me to come back and read. So I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, who will be going through the Haftarah for Pinchas. So without any further ado, I'll pass it on to Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great. First of all, I'd like to say, give praise to the Supreme Channel Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. Due respect to the platform on D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yeriel, to the host, Chief Uzael, to the Chief Princes, brothers and sisters, Maureen, the rabbinate, the whole house of Israel, and visitors. I greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom, and also a slightly early Rosh Chodesh this particular time. This would be Rosh Chodesh by time. Well, anyway, by the time I finish this. In any event, I'd like to say Adonai Seftaji Takufi Yagi Tilateaka, Olo Dama lives and my mouth to declare that praise. I'll be going over the Haftarah. Technically, the Haftarah I'll be doing will be the Haftarah for Matot. That'd be actually the Haftarah. They rarely do the Haftarah for Pinchas. It's usually coming out of 1 Kings 18th chapter, the 46th verse, going to the 19th chapter, the 21st verse. Now, the Sidra Pinchas is covered from Numbers to 25th chapter, the 10th verse, going to Numbers to 30th chapter, the first verse. The reason it's a little discrepancy this year, as you notice, I've been behind because of most people that's outside the land doing Galuf, and plus they celebrate an extra day for Matzah that they change their, and also, you know, anytime it's a cog in between that, they change the Haftarah for that particular Shabbat. So, and that also further delay what we normally would do. That's why we're not in sync with the land of Israel per se. But most of the calendars would reflect, most of them reflect what the Sidros I'm doing and the Haftarahs I'm doing. Now, in this particular case, when it comes to the Sidra Pinchas, is normally, like I said, you would be talking about Elijah and doing this particular Sidra. That'd be the Haftarah for that. But when we have an extra, when it's a little longer and we don't have a leap year, when certain Sidros are not combined together, then, and Pinchas is read after the 17th of the month of Tammuz, then we always have a different Haftarah that's read on that particular time. Now, and so now most of the Haftarahs, as I said earlier, and within those that have been following different talks I give, that most of the Haftarahs have something to do with the portion or the Sidra that you read. Some people would say Parsha. But like I said, also while I'm explaining things, a Sidra is made up of 7 Parshios. So, so that's why I mostly say a Sidra, which is a particular order that is written in. Now, as we look on there, that since it came, we're reading it after the 17th of Tammuz, then most Sidros usually have, before that time, has something to do with this. I mean, most Haftarahs, have something to do with the Sidra. But now, later on, for the 3 weeks between the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Tisha B'Av, all the Haftarahs got something to do with some kind of time. Matter of fact, even further, all the way up to Rosh, what most people refer to as Rosh Hashanah, in the book is Rosh Yom Teruah, which is some people refer to as a New Year thing, which is another story which I might gloss over slightly, in my dissertation this time. That's all those Haftarahs you'll be reading have something to do with the season, and not necessarily with the actual Sidra that's being read. So bearing that in mind, when we look at the way we left off before, we left off dealing with the Sidra where Pinchas had wound up killing a chief man, in Israel, which was out the tribe of Simeon. Now, normally, when we look at the Sidra, the Haftarah that we're going to be doing, like I said, it would normally be assigned to, Matot. That's why a lot of people that mainstream Israelites from the New York area and different places read that last week along with Matot. But when it comes down to the actual Sidra for Pinchas, is usually the Book of Kings, and it's dealing with the prophet Elijah, and it's rarely ever read through any normal year. It's rarely ever read, and that's because of how the calendar is set up. And people will ask, well, who came up with the Sidros? Those sages and the rabbis that help canonize the book and everything like that, they say, this is going to be a Sidra. This is what you're going to read this week. Whether you do a triennial, which is a 3-year period to finish all 5 books, or you do an annual, which is more dominating these days, where you finish all 5 books in a year. But they came up with that. They came up with the Sidros. They came up with which Haftarah that we should use. Now, when I say that, doesn't mean that they wrote the book. The books are ascribed to certain people that already, as you heard from different teachers, but they the ones that come up and say, this is going to be the Sidra, this is where it ends at, and this is the Haftarah. When they started doing Haftarah, which was centuries later, or much later, when they started doing Haftarah, when doing prohibition of reading the actual Sidra, they said, this is going to be the Haftarah that goes along with that. Now, you could discuss it with your various teachers in the various congregations, do your own research to find any more specific details in that area. I'm not here for that platform, just glossing over some of the stuff there and explain why the differences. All right, now we know that one of the questions, after we left off that, we know Balak was an interesting character. That was the Sidra before Pinchas. And then we know that during the time Balak himself, he was actually afraid, and he shared his fear, as I said before, with the people. But one of the interesting things, the character, that plays a dominant role in the actual Sidra of Balak was Balaam. And as bad and wicked as Balaam is, he blessed the children of Israel more than our prophet Moshe Rabbeinu did. And that's something to consider. And it's always a question to say, why this wicked guy who wanted to curse us bless us more than the man who loved us blessed us? So you can always ask those questions, and it bears a lot of discussion, because when you look at the history of Moshe and what blessings he had, and then even the style when it said V'zot habracha, and this is the blessing, and you say, wow. And so when you frame it like that, it's like, it seems like it's going to be a one-time shot, and it's not something like they're going to be like a perpetual type thing or a multiplying type thing, where when you compare the blessings that Balaam gave us, it was, a forever type blessing and a multiplying blessing. So those are things that, some takeaways that you might want to backtrack and look into, and comparing the blessings that Moses had given us as a people and the blessings that Balaam. Now, the closest thing you might read, one of the things about before the V'zot habracha is when you talk about the Mishkan, and when he blessed the people there, and that's basically on a particular job that was done. And when you check all the terms that's used there, soar, finish, good, stuff like that. 7 different terms that is used in the blessing of the Mishkan. The terms that's used in the building of the Mishkan is all the terms that you find in the book of Genesis, when God was creating the heavens and earth in the 6 days and coming up with the Shabbat, and he blessed that day. So those are some of the takeaways from that. Now, as we look, at this particular portion of Pinchas, we know now he was given a everlasting priesthood, because of what he did to the brother that's of the tribe of Simeon, and he stopped the plague. Now, I'd like to just start off in the beginning of Pinchas, in the Numbers, the 25th chapter, the 10th verse, and said, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, had turned my wrath away from the children of Israel, in that he was very jealous for my sake among them, so that I consumed not the children of Israel in my jealousy. Wherefore say, behold, I give unto him my covenant of peace. And it shall be unto him and to his seed after him the covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was jealous for his God and made an atonement for the children of Israel. Now, what's interesting here, the Lord telling Moses this, because it's puzzling. How would a man, and these are questions you could talk about, I'm not going to focus on it that much, but some of the takeaways that you could discuss. because you don't find all the definitive answers here in the Tanakh. That here's a man, top man in his tribe. People had already been slaughtered for participating in the sin of Baal Peor and doing all kind of lewd acts, whatever acts they come up with, and they discuss and talk about. And what's interesting is that it tell you that he passed before, Moses and the whole congregation with this woman, so he wasn't hiding. And you wonder why nobody else acted upon it. And he had a princess, and it doesn't say that he participated in the sins of Baal Peor. It doesn't say a clear cut in the text. So it brings out a lot of issues that when you're from the surface, all we see is that this man out of the tribe of Simeon had a Midianite woman, and next thing you know, he walks by while everybody else is standing there wailing because of the death that's going on, and the plague still going, mind you, still continuing. And he walks into his tents and, go ahead and do what you're going to do with the woman, as men and women do. And he was slain in the act. So that's some of the things to discuss even deeper. Moses was married to a Midianite priest's daughter, and he's taken a Midianite prince's daughter. So he wouldn't say it's wrong to marry a Midianite in that sense, because only 7 nations according to Tanakh. Now, I'm not talking about halakhic laws and all this stuff, pretty much that came around later. I'm saying it's wrong for us as Israelites or Jews or whatever you might want to define yourself as, to marry those 7 nations on the other side in the land. So that's who we weren't supposed to marry and make covenants with and utterly destroy. But it didn't say that about Midianites. So then back to the question, why he was slain. Also, we know, looking forward, that we went to war with those people, and they still brought back Midianite women, virgins. So these are some things to discuss, as you go forward. I'm not going to touch on a lot of stuff here tonight, or this afternoon, evening. And but they brought back when they went to avenge themselves, themselves of the Midianites, and they took back the women. First, they brought back all the women, and then they was told to keep only the virgins. So that's another thing that's we got to look into and consider. And then not only that, Moses supposed to have a lot of insight. If you figure it's wrong, then why did God have to let him know that Pinchas was justified? So it's a lot of things that's going on that we don't see clearly. And it's the only time that you read in the scriptures where God actually exonerated an individual without asking for exoneration. He didn't ask to be exonerated, but yet the Creator exonerated him. He didn't get permission. It was no due process in the trial, and yet the Creator. It must have been a thing where the Creator talked to Moses directly for him to speak these words about the action of Pinchas. So that means right then and there that everybody didn't just take kindly to it. So this is something to discuss even further, and look into it, because a lot of times we just look at things and say, okay, he was wrong, and God was in the plan. Well, some things God is in the plan, and in some things, we do on our own. And this is one of the things that a man did on his own, and it became, and it's not something that's normally to be followed. And those that read the Hebrew and definitely go to scrolls, you find the word shalom with a space between a wall, or bob, as they would say. And they interpret that as that, yeah, he had peace, but it had a full peace. And then what kind of peace you talking about? What do they mean by peace? A covenant, and it's, an everlasting priesthood was for his whole family, but the covenant of peace was only for him. So that's something that, to consider and think about as we go forward. All right. And then, after that, in the 16th verse, it says in the same chapter, it said, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, harass the Midianites and spite them, for they harass you by their wiles, where they have beguiled you in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the prince of Midian, their sister, who was slain on the day of the plague, in that matter of Peor. Now, and then I'll just go into the next verse just a little bit, And it came to pass after the plague that the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saying, take the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel from 20 years old and upward, by their father's house, and all that are able to go forth to war in Israel. All right. Now, what is unique in this thing here is that the Midianites the Moabites under the king Balak hired Balaam to curse us. And yet the Midianites themselves is the ones that, entrapped us. Now, they say we had Moabite women and Midianite women as well. So, that's another story. But it was only the Midianites we was told to go to war with, not with the Moabites, who definitely wanted, the king was afraid and genuinely wanted to destroy us. But what reason the Midianites have to try to bring us down? That's another thing. What reason would they have? And then we got to think about some other issues that might come up too. You killed the princess of the top prince of Midian. You think it would be no repercussion? God exonerated Pinchas, but did, Zippor, not Zippor, did I get it right? Let me see. Yeah, let me just go back just a little bit because I don't want to give wrong information. If it did, and mistakes been my own, as I would say. Well, her father was the prince, and that's clear. The name might escape me just for a moment, trying to go too fast. Sometime. But anyway, don't you think that if you killed my daughter, I know how I would feel. So if they killed your daughter, you know how you would feel, especially when you figure she's with an individual of status that should be able to protect her, especially when you don't see her doing anything out the way. So it brings a lot of things for further discussion when you look at this is daughter of a princess of the top guy, Midian, and you kill her. And the creator say, let's go back there. So it's a lot of questions to be asked, and discussed further. But I'm not going to go into it. Then we took a census here, and we know that the census was done amongst the people, the tribes, after this such a catastrophe. And you notice the tribe of Simeon lost a lot of members here. All right, so now after all that, then we jumps into the 26th chapter, where it talks about the inheritance in the 52nd verse. And it said, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, unto these the land shall be divided for inheritance according to the number of the names. To the more thou shalt give the more an inheritance, and to the fewer thou shalt give the less inheritance. To each one according to those that were number of it shall its inheritance be given. Notwithstanding, the land shall be divided by lot according to the names of the tribes and their fathers they shall inherit. According to the lot shall their inheritance be divided between the more and the fewer. Now, most of us know about this here $1 billion mega thing going on now, that lotto, big mega millions. And can you imagine that one, you're told to represent, have your family names put in, tribal names put in, and then you're going to inherit according to, the tribe's going to inherit their portion, and they're going to be divided amongst the families of that tribe. And to the greater, the people that got the most people get more land, and those that got fewer people get less land, which stands to reason. But then it's another problem. Suppose I don't want a lot of timber. I might want grassland. Suppose I want more lakes and ponds in my land. Suppose I like to just say, I like the landscape in a mountainous area. So this is one of the things that will, to be considered, that if you want to say, well, this is what my heritage is going to look like, I know I'm going to get some property, but what is it going to look like? And the location, do I want to stay there? Do I want to live over there? Do I like that neighborhood? All that. And then how can you tell if later on, if the leaders of the tribe pull a lot for the tribe and a lot for the land, how you know that's going to match up? You want to take a chance like that? And it said you can't swap it. So that is really a lottery. The first actual lottery, or other than you talking about the scapegoat, that's an actual lottery. And where here it bears more weight because now you're dealing with 12 tribes. The tribe of Levi is not included in that lottery. And you're talking, millions of people, considering the men of war and their wives, and if they have little ones as well. And you saying that land is suited to their character. Now that is a divine thing there, because it must be suited to their character. So, that bears a lot more, consideration as we go through that as well. Now, one of the things I'd like to jump down to the 63rd chapter of that same, 63rd verse, of that same chapter, the 26th chapter of Numbers. And it says here that these are they that were numbered by Moses and Eleazar the priest, who numbered the children of Israel in the plains of Moab by the Jordan at Jericho. But among these were not a man of them that were numbered by Moses and Aaron the priest, who numbered the children of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai. For the Lord has said of them, they shall surely die in the wilderness, and there was not left a man of them save Caleb the son of Jephunneh and Joshua the son of Nun. All right. Now, we know automatically what happened, with the spies. All right, so I'm not going to dwell on that much. But imagine all their contemporaries, Caleb and Joshua's contemporaries, are dead, except for the Levites and except for females. They're dead. And this is a whole new count, and then when we look even further in it, we know automatically one of the things that happened, that we talk about and look at is that certain tribes wanted to stay on that side of the Jordan. We know that automatically. All right. Some tribes want to stay on the other side of Jordan, and I spoke on that in one of my Sidros about the tribe of Gad, the tribe of Reuben, and the half tribe of Manasseh. So Manasseh was like on both sides of the Jordan. But here we got something interesting here in the 27th chapter. Then drew near the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. And these are the names of his daughters, Machlah, Noah, and Hoglah, and Milcah, and Tirzah. Now Noah is we know it's spelled the same way in English, but it's spelled different in Hebrew. So it's not the exact same name as Noah that built the ark, but in English it would appear that way. But the difference is one, Noah that built the ark, his name ends with a chet, and her name ends with an ayin. So an ayin also represents an eye. So she probably had vision, be able to see about certain things. But anyway, they stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest, and before the princes and all the congregation at the door of the tent of meeting. All right, now they had a meeting that the women wasn't called to, but they showed up, and then they had something to say. Our father died in the wilderness. He was not among the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord and the company of Korah, but he died in his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family, because he had no sons? Give unto us a possession among the brethren of our father. Now, there's a lot of interesting points. I'm not going to go into it too deep. I spent a lot of time on that because I'm basically going to try to get to the Haftarah and also the season. One of the things I like to bring out is that the women never was a problem in the 40 years. Can you imagine that? Most of the problem that the brother that came to Moses was mainly from the men. The men tend to be the problem, and I'm not trying to get like they say, brownie points or with females. I'm just citing what we read according to scriptures. And here it is, these women took a bold step now, and they up at a meeting where the top princes of each tribe, not a regular prince, the top prince of every tribe, and it's meeting about land inheritance. And these guys are the ones that are supposed to pick for their particular tribe, and they interceded for their father had died. And they say and what's ironic, they say, he didn't stand against you, Moses, but he wasn't so righteous. He didn't stand against you, but he wasn't so righteous. He died in his own sin. So that's something to consider, And so Moses, we know he brought this to God, and then God, ruled in their favor and stuff like that. And then the tribe of Manasseh come back, with an issue, and, talking about they'll lose if they marry outside the tribe, so they had to marry within their tribe. But one thing I like to focus on is that no person of the nation of Israel should be without a relative. That is hard to conceive unless everybody that's Israel is dead. That's the only way you don't have a relative. Everybody in Israel is dead. There's no person that's in there. Now, a stranger, he might not have any relatives. He might have acquired a business, but he had no relatives because he's happened to be hanging out with us. But anybody that happened to be a bona fide bloodline Israelite has a relative, somewhere close, not distance. So this this is something that that bears a lot of discussion and everything like that. But they rule in their favor. But one thing that's a subtlety is that the reason Moses bring it to the Creator is because you compromise his position as a judge. You telling me, all right, he didn't stand against you and the Lord and you, like Korah and them did. So what you trying to say? I should show you favor because he was on my side? When the confrontation came, that you read where the elders was with Moses and Aaron, but you read where all the people was with Moses and Aaron. You read where they had to say, everybody get away from these wicked men. Touch not anything of their stuff. So that's something to look back into. And so as a judge, and if you want to be a righteous judge, you can't have your position compromised. You're going to say, well, is that a bribe? Bribe is not always monetary. sometimes it's favor for favor. So those things we got to consider. And Moses brought to the Creator, and then, naturally we know the story, the rule in their favor, in their favor rather, with certain certain things that was supposed to be in reference to the land, and land that they had to marry within their tribe. Excuse me, they had to marry within their tribe. Then we started talking about the different holy days, and when we started to read about the holy days, the Shlosh Regalim, and that's pretty much how the things go into Shalosh Regalim. And then that's before we get into Matot. It ends in the first verse of the 30th chapter. But we talk about the different things, the new moons. We talk about the sacrifices being done on those new moons. We talk about the Shabbat. Talk about Pesach. Talk about the sacrifices done on Pesach, Shavuot, and etc. all the way down the line. But also, when they talk about what's interesting, that when it gets in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, which is the 29th chapter of this Sidra, you shall have a holy convocation. You should do no manner of servile work. It is a day of blowing the horn unto the Lord. Now, I just want to just bring that out and glossing over, because there's a lot of stuff I'm just glossing over right now for the sake of time. Is that something to consider? We blow those trumpets that was made in Numbers, the 10th chapter, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Those 2 silver trumpets is blown on our new moons, our feast days, and and all our sacrifices. When we go to war and stuff like that for assembly. So all those silver trumpets are blown. So why make a distinction on the 7th month? According from and we count from the time of Passover, the month of Aviv. So why make it that distinction? And say it's a day of blowing of the horn, when you blow the horn on every festive season and over sacrifices and over other things. So why is that a day of blowing? So those are things that should be discussed a little bit more. And now, as I was concluding there, I want to just talk about the season and the month we're into. Because I spoke previously about Aharon, the first high priest. And one of the interesting things is that I said from the 17th of Tammuz to the 9th of Av is 3 weeks of hard times. And I talked about the summer times not being so glamorous for Israelites in the past. And we had fasts that was instituted during the 7 years of Babylon. But what I find interesting, which I told you before about Aharon, the high priest, and I just want to read just a little thing that's going a little bit outside the Sidra, but you're going to pick it up later on in next week's Sidra. But I like to just point it out now because of the timing. While I'm doing this talk, this evening will be Rosh Chodesh for Av. And the 33rd chapter of Numbers, and I like to point out in 39th verse, no, better yet, the 38th verse, from the 38th verse. And I told you, I mentioned it before, but let's like to read it now. And Aaron the priest went up unto Mount Hor at the commandments of the Lord, and died there in the 40th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 5th month, on the first day of the month. And Aaron was 123 years old when he died in Mount Hor. All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Now, like I said, he's the only one out of all the people we read about and Tanakh, as they would say, has a Yortzeit, has a date that we can remember that he died. We have rabbinic literature that might say when Moses died, when Miriam died, when the patriarchs died. That's basically from traditional viewpoints. But according to Tanakh and according to the text, this is the only person in the whole text that we actually got the day where he could say he has a death certificate that could be issued to his family members or the ones that his loved ones. And it happened to be in the month of Av, which we're coming into. And we read about Moses. I just want to bring out some things for discussion more so. And we read about Moses that when he died at 120 years old, it said his eyes were not dim, nor his natural forces abated. And he died at 120 years old. So we know Moses died after Aaron because, you know, it's obvious that his son, and we get an estimate time of when Moses died. And the estimate time is in pretty much close to the month of Adar. The estimate time by backtracking from Joshua's stepped over into the land. So we get a pretty much an estimated time, considering the 30 days of mourning and everything like that there, when Moses died, but we don't have an exact date. Also, it talks about his physical ability at that age. And that is, you know, really something, because they don't talk about none of Aaron's physical ability. But I like to point this out. Aaron was in perfect shape, just like Moses was in perfect shape. And why would I begin to even say that? First of all, he's a Kohen. So he got to have a sharp eye. You know, he got to have a sharp mind, so he can't have dementia. He got to be healthy to move about and climb up a mountain. And so, and he's 3 years older than Moses. So we tend to not look at the physical quality of Aaron. We look at the physical quality of Moses. And then the question would be, why it specifies Moses' physical qualities and doesn't specify Aaron's physical qualities as the first anointed high priest? So those are things you could, you know, kick around as well. And then when we look even further, you know, this is something, you know, coming from Crown Prince. I haven't read it or anything like that, but one of the things I used to teach years ago about being, he's the only one that has a death certificate. It happened to be in the month of Av. And Av in Hebrew, we know is a father. Now, most people know Abba, but Abba is actually the Aramaic. When we say Abba, it's just an Aramaic word that we adopted into our language because we like the sound. And so they would say Ab is just a father in general, but Ab is the word, and aim is the word. Ima is the Aramaic word as well. And you can tell most Aramaic words because it usually ends with aleph and stuff like that. And it had like a, you know, a flavor that we kind of like. So now in Hebrew, we say Abba is one that you can identify with as your immediate father, and Ab is just a father in general. So if we go with the Ab as a father in general, the 5th month is Av. All right, and in that 5th month is Av. We always call those that's in the Christian church or the Catholic thing, they say, that's the father, that's Father Flanagan, you know, Father Toussaint, you know, Father Burgess, but he's a priest. So Aaron is the first high priest that, you know, we have as from the nation of Israel. And he's the first anointed high priest. I know people might say, well, we read about, you know, Melchizedek, and there's always an issue with that. You know, king of Salem and priest of the Most High God, high priest of the Most High God, priest of the Most High God. All right, all well and good. But we never read where he was anointed as either one. Whether he was anointed as king, whether he was anointed as priest, but we know he was recognized as such by our father Abraham. So Aaron, we know, was anointed. And you know, only the high priest is going to be anointed or the king going to be anointed after that time. All right, so these are something to consider, that you got the first high priest of the nation of Israel that dies on Rosh Chodesh, which should be a joyous time, you know, celebratory time during the summer. And also 9 days after that, or 8 days, so to speak, After that, during the book, you might see the 10th that is actually completely destroyed, that the temple is destroyed. And both temples were destroyed at that time. So it's saying when you lose your priest, you're gonna lose lose the building as well. That's something to consider. And one more thing I'd like to say before I go into the Haftarah. I know I've been a little bit long, so I'm gonna try to be a little bit step up afterwards. One of the things I like to bring out is that when you look at the month of Av, according to how we count our calendar, because we go by two calendars. We go by a civil calendar and we go by an ecclesiastical calendar. Well, according to the ecclesiastical calendar, the month of Aviv, or some people might say Nisan, is the first month. According to the ecclesiastical calendar, the month of Ethanim, or later on referred to as Tishri, is the first month. And we know we deal with those years because we talk about sabbatical years and stuff like that there, and that begins, so that the Rosh Chodesh of the 7th year, and plus it's the 7th Rosh Chodesh as well. So it's a unique thing. But if we kept it and only count from the 7th month of Ethanim, and we say that's month number 1, and then we go to the next one, bull number 2 instead of 8 and stuff like that, etc. When we get to the month of Av, it's happened to be the 11th month. And so if we look at it from that count, you got 11 and 9, but we'd be looking towards in the fall for 9/11. And that's something. 2 World Trade buildings destroyed on 9/11 in this here dispensation, but yet we had 2 temples destroyed on 11 and 9, just a reverse. And the purpose of it was reversed too. One is to make money in business, and the other one is to help, atone for souls and bring people closer to the Creator. So that's just something to bear in mind in reference to the time and the season as we're coming into. So so most of the prophecies and that we've been reading about in the Haftarah are going to be things of an admonishment for 3 weeks. So that's why the normal Sidra for Pinchas, which would be in the Book of Kings, is actually wouldn't be read. It would be read. We read the Book of Jeremiah because we work on those 3 weeks, remind us of the time of the destruction of the first temple, and then also later on by the Romans, the destruction of the second temple. So you don't find people, sometimes they might not shave, they might not do a whole lot of, dubbing up, beautifying themselves for them 3 weeks. No weddings is performed, during that particular time of 3 weeks. No real celebratory type thing is done for the 3 weeks until after Tisha B'Av. So I just figured I'd just throw that out there for a moment for the people to consider and also appreciate, hopefully, more what our way of life is about. Then and we know in the Book of Kings, I'm just going to turn there just for a moment, but I'm not going to talk of that because I know it's been kind of long. But I want to bring out a couple of things, and it's dealing with Elijah, all right? And that was 18 chapter, 46th verse. That's when it started talking about, the prophet Elijah, and let me see, 1846. Okay. All right. And this after Elijah had, before, I'll just give you some backdraft just a little bit, because I'm not going to speak on it that much, that Elijah had already, slain the prophets of Baal, had them slain by the people when they had that big contest. We know it hadn't rained for 3 years, so he did all that. And also, after that, we know that when Jezebel, when Elijah ran across Ahab, and after Elijah and had a famine, and Ahab thought he was calling him a troublemaker and everything. He was doing all kind of wicked stuff, and this was only dealing with the northern kingdom. So this just before the Assyrians under Sennacherib had taken all the northern kingdom away, and there was a lot of problems up north. So Elijah had ran before Ahab. Just give you a little backdraft. I'm not going to really read hardly in that. I'm going to focus on Jeremiah. Is that he winds up at this time talking to Ahab, say you're going to eat and drink and everything like that, because they're going to be, rain, because they haven't rained for 3 years. A land with no rain for 3 years, and a land that doesn't have a whole lot of irrigation and stuff like that. That's tragic. So Elijah wind up going and and prophesizing that, So then next day, he ran before Ahab, and it's prophesizing and telling him what's going on. So we say, well, why would Elijah run before Ahab? Because he's a king. Even if he's not a good king, he's a king. And he's running before Ahab before the rain actually comes down. He said, it's going to be some rain now. And it was like a mist coming up from the sea. So those that I ask people to read that story and consider some of the gems that's in the story itself, the protocol and the disenchantment, where Elijah himself, and just to be short, be brief, he gets to a certain point where he runs into the wilderness. But I'd like to point out some things. This is usually read as a Haftarah by Sephardims with the sin of the golden calf, and he just saw. All right. So after that, and Ahab came. I'm starting just a little bit before 46 verse. And the hand of the Lord was upon Elijah, and he girded his loins, and he ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. All right, that's the capital of the northern kingdom. And Ahab told Jezebel, which is Isabel, all that Elijah had done. And withal, he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And he went, and when he saw that, he arose and went for his life and came to Beersheba, which belonged to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. All right. Now, I just want to point out some things. I'm not going to read all this stuff here. I just want to point out some things about the prophet Elijah in this here. One, some points is that did Ahab decide to change a little bit? Did he consider Elijah a little bit in a different light when he killed 400 of the prophets of Baal when fire came down? Did he have a second thought, because he was an Israelite, and she was, a foreigner, one of the people we were supposed to be hooked up with in the first place, but this is the northern kingdom. And some of the things that you point out, did she recognize she had a man killed for her husband? Now she gonna kill and say it before, that she's gonna send a messenger to Elijah that I'm gonna kill you, and make an oath that she's gonna kill him. So what is strange about it is that if you're gonna kill somebody, why warn them? Why send a message? Just go ahead and send somebody out, send the hitman out. You don't send a message and we're gonna send the hitman out and you're talking about my assassin's on his way. You don't say that. So why that? She might look at her husband and say, well, you ain't looking the same way. Could that be an issue? So that bears going back into and looking as well. And then he runs to Judah. Why in the territory of Judah? Because that's out of the jurisdiction of the northern kingdom. So he left the period or the place of the northern kingdom and came to the territory of Yehudah. That's one thing. And then the reason that's mostly read pretty much in around the sin of the golden calf, when Moses was trying to plead for the children of Israel after the sin, he got these 13 attributes, is that he kind of reminisced Moses. He went to the same place, after, we know he was fed by the angel, 2 meals, and he went to the same place where the distance far, and he went up in Mount Horeb. Sound very familiar. And you know, he got in a cave. Some similarities there, you know, and then he supposed to get some kind of revelation from the Creator. So you got some winds, you know, earthquakes and all that kind of stuff, and the fire. The next thing you know, it's a soft or still voice, whatever that is, you know, and then God was in the voice. But what's interesting is, didn't God put Moses in the cleft of the rock? Well, it said, I mean, and put it and cover his hand over him, you know, so that, you know, his glory could pass by. And then he had those 13 attributes. And you say, well, okay, I can see that relation there. So now, what did Elijah think? Do you think he's a Moses? Do you think he want to get away? He want to die? That's what he said. He ready to you know to die at this point in time. A man that never died, he's ready to die. Also, he said, I alone am left for the prophets. He forgot about the ones that Obadiah hid. You know, 100 prophets, 50 in a cave, 50 in that cave, and he fed them during the time of a famine. He forgot about all that. And he figured because he's the only one that's publicly speaking. And then if he had 100 prophets that he hid, and the God told him that 7,000 that haven't even bent the knee or kissed the calf. So 7,000 is a great deal different from 100 that he actually hid. So, you know, it's a lot of things going on with that, you know, as we look into that. And that when Elijah got his vision, you know, was checking, he was in a cave with a covering over the cave as all this stuff passed by. So he was being sheltered like Moses was being sheltered when the divine presence came by. So you're going to find a lot of similarities in there, but I'm not going to focus on that. We're going to go straight to the book of Jeremiah. But if you get a chance, go back over, see some of the similarities, see some of the frailties. We know that he was supposed to anoint 3 people, Hazael, you know, the king of Syria, because Babylon, you know, where Babylon was not Assyria, but Syria, you know, because Babylon overthrew Assyria. And he's supposed to, anoint Yehu. And then he's supposed to anoint Elisha to take his place. Because if you want to die, then, you know, and you talk disparagingly about the people and say you're the only one that's left, then you don't have faith in the people. And the leader must always have faith in the people he leading. So we're going to pull over to Jeremiah a little bit. Another prophet that had problems. And a lot of the Haftarah we're going to be reading is admonishments against us. So if you're there, Chief, I'm going to try to be as swift as possible in this here and go through the first chapter, first verse of Jeremiah.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
Okay.
We're in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 1. The words of Jeremiah, the son of Hilkiah, of the priest that were in Anatoth, in the land of Benjamin, to whom the word of Yehovah came in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Yehudah, in the 13th year of his reign. It came also in the days of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. And the word of Yehovah...
Right there. All right, before we go even further. So that's what I'm saying. That's why the 5th month is so important. I know most of us might not pay much attention to the 5th month, except we might read it in historical, but we had some serious things going on in the 5th month. We lose our first high priest. We lose 2 temples around that time. And, you know, first temple lasted for 410 years. The next one lasted for 420 years. You know, you're talking about 70-year difference, you know, in between that. So it's really, you know, something to consider even more. And then what I find interesting is that you have Jehoiakim, and those that do, especially I know brothers I grew around and stuff like that, brothers like D.C.B. and Shema, and different other brothers, maybe Hashaba, that study these different books and Chronicles and Kings and stuff like that in the history. They know that when you look at Jehoiakim, he wasn't considered the firstborn. Yeah, he was a king. And his brother, Zedekiah, was younger than him. And Nebuchadnezzar put him up as a king. But Nebuchadnezzar wiped him and his sons out. Jehoiakim never died. He just stayed in Babylon. So now, hence question, who was the king that should have been on the throne? And what was his descendants? Because we all talking about the seed of David and the Moshiach. And then with the closest we read, where anybody that had any legitimacy was Zerubbabel. It was a signal of truth. So all this stuff brings out a lot of information. And Jeremiah was a priest, but he was not out the high priest line, he was out the line of Ithamar. And we know that some of the famous guys from the line of Ithamar was Eli. We say Eli in English. All right, but we can pick it up from the 4th verse.
Verse 4 reads, "And the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Before I formed thee in the belly I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb I sanctified thee. I have appointed thee a prophet unto the nations." Then
okay, hold it. Now, what's important is that we had a Nazarite from the womb. Now we got a prophet from the womb. And this is the only one that, and then he's not just a prophet from the womb, he's an international prophet. Balaam has some international status too. Right? But half prophet will hire, half will travel. But he was more in the cursing or the blessing business. It depends on what you're paying him, whether it was worth his time and beneficial to him. But here it is that Jeremiah was a prophet unto the nations. Now, the closest you pretty much find anything related to that is Jonah. That's the closest we find. Jonah had to leave town and go to Nineveh. Well, a lot of Israelites were taken off at too anyway as well. But he was supposed to speak to the people of Nineveh. But you don't read where the Creator ever sent, a lot of prophets to even the great king Nebuchadnezzar. Though he had guys there like Daniel, Ananias, Azariah, Mishael, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He had guys like that, and he had Ezekiel in Babylon, the prophet. But they didn't have the status like Jeremiah had, and they didn't have the burden that Jeremiah had. And so Jeremiah would be an international prophet. And then what is unique about Jeremiah, he was internationally known. That's the difference between all the prophets. He was internationally known. And we know when the temple was destroyed, Nebuchadnezzar already told his general, look, let Jeremiah do what he want to do. He want to stay, let him stay. If he want to go, let him go. And you can find that out when you read in the book of Jeremiah itself at the destruction. So, and the reason we started, they call him the weeping prophet and stuff like that there. But he got started off, pretty much on a rough road. I'll continue. 6 verse.
Verse 6. Then said I, Lord Yahuwah, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child. But Yahuwah said unto me, say not I am a child, for to whomsoever I shall send thee, thou shalt go, and whatsoever I shall command thee, thou shalt speak. Be not afraid of them, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith Yahuwah. Then said Yahuwah, put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And Yahuwah said unto me, behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant.
Oh, wait. So you're going to be a demolition man with your words. We always say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, names will never harm me. Words harm some people, and that's why a lot of times, even when you deal with the Sidra, I'm talking about vows and stuff like that, words can harm you. Balaam knew words can harm you too. Balak knew words can harm you as well. So words could do some damage. Most times, sticks and stones, you might heal up from that. Break a bone, throw it in a cast. Get a bruise, it'll heal up most likely if you're blessed. But certain words and names and stuff like that, certain words will cut you deep. And it never, ever, no matter if you even say, I forgive you for what you said, it resonates to the day you die sometimes. So so here it is. He got to say, I got to go and destroy stuff before I build up. And you know, all those that know that if they did a restoration in the kitchen, a restoration in the bathroom, restoration on their floor, they said, man, that look hard, but we got to hurry up and finish this. I can't stand looking at it. But it was necessary to make it even better than what it was before you started. So that's what Jeremiah is saying. That, you know, I mean, that's his position. Excuse me, that's his position. But the Creator saying, when you talking about you can't speak, Moses said that. But you gonna do and say what I tell you to say, like Balaam did what God told him to say. Like Moses was supposed to speak what God wanted him to say, and Aaron was supposed to speak what was supposed to be said. So a lot of times we sometimes might forget, though God may use us as a vessel, a kli kadosh, a holy vessel, we just a vessel. All the contents come from above, not from within. They come from above. And so let's continue from the 11th verse.
Verse 11 reads, Moreover, the word of Yahuwah came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said Yahuwah unto me, Thou hast well seen, for I watch over my word to perform it. And the word of Yahuwah came unto me the second time, saying, What seest thou? And I said, I see a seething pot, and the face thereof is from the north. Then Yahuwah said unto me, Out of the north the evil shall break forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. For lo, I will call all the families of the kingdoms of the north, saith Yahuwah, and they shall come, and they shall set every one his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, and against all the walls thereof round about, and against all the cities of Yehudah. And I will utter...
Before you go to 16. Before you go to 16. All right. One of the things I like to bring out is that I pointed out earlier in one of my talks about Ezekiel as opposed to, you know, the prophets, you know what I mean, like Isaiah and Jeremiah. I mean, Ezekiel had visions too, but I'm saying, and why we say we can canonize certain books, but what makes it greater, like Jeremiah and Isaiah, what makes them great, and, you know, and like Moses pretty much, is that when they was asked a question, they was able to see exactly what's going on. Ezekiel in captivity amongst the captives, he could see things, but he couldn't explain them. That's a difference. So there's a certain type of sanctity and holiness if you're still in the land, a certain type of elevation that you have if you're still in the land, as opposed to those that's out the land. Not that God can't work with you outside the land, but look at the level of the people that was in the land when we look at our own prophets, as opposed to those that was outside the land. And when you read those different books, even when you read certain minor, what they call the minor prophets, you know, most people cast, and when they back in the land, and how the prophecy is read out and spoken on. They have very little mysticism behind it. I continue. Verse 16.
Verse 16, it reads, And I will utter my judgments against them, touching all their wickedness, and that they have forsaken me, and have offered unto other gods, and worshipped the work of their own hands. Thou therefore gird up thy loins, and arise, and speak unto them all that I command thee. Be not dismayed at them, lest I dismay thee from before them.
Before we get to 18, one of the things is that who go to the battle or destruction and say, all right, let me get a front row seat to see this thing go down. Because there's no danger of them coming overrunning me. So I'm gonna get up real close. You know, like people that go to the different boxing matches, they want to get real close to the ring, because why? You can see better, and there's no danger of them guys coming and attacking you. the ultimate fighting and stuff like that. To get ringside seats. Why? Because you don't feel like they're gonna come and threaten you. A basketball game ringside seat, because you don't feel that nobody gonna really do anything to you. It is these kings in a battle. They said, look here, I'll bring my throne. I ain't gotta worry about nobody doing anything. We're gonna beat these guys down. And that is the tragedy, because we had some relatives that was sitting out there watching us get beat down. And that's and this was foretold. Keep going.
Verse 18, it reads, For behold, I have made thee this day a fortified city, and an iron pillar, and brazen walls against the whole land, against the kings of Yehudah, against the princes thereof, and against the priests thereof, and against the people of the land. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee. For I am with thee, saith Yehovah, to deliver thee.
All right, keep going to the next one. Next verse.
Chapter 2.
Yes.
Chapter 2 reads, And the word of Yehovah came unto me, Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 1. And the word of Yehovah came to me, saying, Go and cry in the ears of Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith Yehovah, I remember for thee the affection of thy youth, the love of thine espousals, how thou wentest after me in the wilderness, in a land that was not sown. Israel is Yehovah's hallowed portion, his first fruits of the increase. All that devour him shall be held guilty. Evil shall come upon them, saith Yehovah. Hallelujah.
Right there. All right, now, just to elaborate a little bit, I just wanted to finish up to try to save some time. One of the things is that you got to tell people that you're a part of your family and everybody coming against you. Because now you say, hey, if you don't straighten up, this is going to happen. You're going to lose this, you're going to lose that. You're going to have these catastrophes going on. So you sound like a traitor. We got the temple here. Just like centuries ago, when the Israelites were fighting the Philistines, they said, oh, the ark came so we could cheer. Because we got the ark with us. We're supposed to win. But the Philistines, gave that pep talk, bust them down, and took the ark. So here it is that God telling Jeremiah to be bold, be tough. They're going to fight against you. Don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. So when brothers get up and teach at the various congregations, and we ain't talking about always bringing fire and brimstone type of teachers like they do in some institutions where, sometimes they leaders get up on the pulpit and get that fire and brimstone and that, the hell type talk and, the damnation type talk. But making people aware of what the Creator is not pleased with in them and what could possibly happen to you. And I'm telling you this, and they're telling you this because they care about you, but they're not supposed to show any fear. They're supposed to be bold about that. So you got to stand up for righteousness or you're going to fall down for any kind of wickedness. So with that, I hope you got some of what I said and any mistakes by my own and enjoy, the days that's coming, in the sense that be recognizing that as we go through and approaches Tisha B'Av in the next few weeks, then after the Tisha B'Av, it'd be Haftarah of comfort. And that means that we start being soothed by the Creator and by the people that compiled it like that. So we get prepared in the 6th month, the month of Elul, as they call it, to start actually reading certain Psalms, like Psalms 27, all the way up, all the way through Shemini Atzeret, stuff like that. So it's a lot going on. That summer is not really our most glorious time, but it's a time that we could also renew our strength. All right, so with that, I'll say Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom. And I'm also told Rosh Kodesh.
Hallelujah. Prince, before you go, quick question. We had a discussion at the table this past Shabbat, and we were discussing divorce and what is the proper way for our divorce to occur by Torah. What in your well, not in your opinion, but what is your interpretation of divorce in terms of the Torah, what the Torah gives us, and how we're supposed to execute a divorce?
Okay, well, you have a formula for divorce mentioned in Deuteronomy, the 24th chapter, what you're supposed to do, and it talks about write or cut a book about, and until you find no favor, and she finds no favor in your eyesight. So
Right.
one, divorce is initiated by the man. That's number one. Right? It's initiated. It's not, today women pursue for divorce, pursue divorce on their own, whatever the case is, but according to the laws of God, and that's left on record by Moses in Deuteronomy, that's the only instance where you read where it's a contract or paperwork that had to be done to say this divorce is going to be finalized. Now, today, guys, that's why we were looking for the last days. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because everybody tended to do was almost like the time of Judges. Everything, was right in their own eyesight.
Right.
And by the same token, because people say, well, if you got a divorce contract, only logically you would have some kind of marriage contract, because how are you gonna prove that you got this woman legit? Somebody got to see something going on, So it wouldn't be no such thing as a dowry if it wasn't some kind of formulation of a contract prior. Because how you can talk about dowry for a virgin, if it was nothing to be ever be written up. So, but I know, people tend to do some of everything these days and times and call it, all kind of stuff, but if we're going to do a righteous thing, I know people that only follow, pretty much, follow the New Testament don't deal with divorce at all. But, and then at one time in the Catholic Church, they wouldn't deal with divorce at all because,
Right.
certain things is written in there. But it's a formula. It's a laudable thing if you find you can't get along. That it's best that you go your separate ways. But the ways is the separation is decided and initiated by the man. So that's why it's important to have counselors in it. But you just gonna write no one liner. I so divorce such this date, and two people sign it. That's not considered a book or a divorce, a bill of divorce. And also amongst rabbinic literature, let's say deal with halachically, just those that would follow a rabbinic type of divorce thing, is that you would go before a bet din and state your reasons for divorce. It's the man that does that. After we have, they always try to get you counseling. And they always ask you, check and see if it possibly can be resolved. And if it's gonna go through, if it's gonna go through, then you have you sign, if you can't write it up, you designate somebody to write it up in the official languages, just like the Torah scroll was written up, in the fonts that they use there. So they usually have a sofer. Just like a guy that writes up the Torah scrolls that they use in all the synagogues. Well, this guy has a skill to write those things up with the formula for divorce. And you got to have the witnesses, and you say you designate, and also within the contract, you designate somebody to act as your proxy. So then she would meet separately and with the bet din, and she'll be presented with it, with the divorce bet. And and normally now in the land, and I must bring this out because a lot of Israelites don't do that. So you might want to research it carefully. But that and she would have the paper. She would walk to the door of whatever place they're at, and then hand it back. And the reason you hand it back to be on file is because suppose she loses it, who's gonna safeguard it? Who's gonna keep it pretty much in these days and time? So then they would draw a line through that particular paper. It's not a copy of a paper; it's the original paper that you assigned and filled out. And then she had, acknowledged and signed that that was it. everything got to be spelled properly. Your name, the date, all that, address, where you live at, wherever you reside, got to be proper. Not one mistake. Any mistake makes it null and void. That's how tight it be. And, then they, draw a line diagonally through it. And after they draw a line diagonally through it, you will get a copy, but that original piece is used and filed, but nobody else could use it. So you can't just take a snapshot and say, this is the way it's written up. I'm just gonna put my name in and put my date, whatever the case is, fill in. It can't be, it gotta be completely done on a separate paper, usually parchment and stuff like that. So, and only in the land of Israel is this talk about a spousal support after you divorce it, because which was interesting, which I try to rush through, is that most women, when it came to land, the property, it stays within the men's area. But if the woman was divorced, you put her out of your house according to Deuteronomy. So how's she gonna live? All right, what a family could do for her, she got to be able to sustain herself. So there must be a contract to say, look here, she got to be provided for. So on the land of Israel, where they don't have no civil marriages, they have, you got to be divorced by a rabbi. If you're married if you're Muslim, by an imam, because and now it's civil divorces because of property involved, monetarily. Because when you put a woman out of her house, now suppose her father and them gone, dead. The brothers don't want to take her in. You made her a garusha. It's a negative term. Now another brother might marry the garusha, but no priest could ever marry a garusha, but yeah, he can marry a woman that's a widow. Now, can you imagine that? A woman that's a widow can marry a priest, and a divorcee can never marry a priest, only another brother, and another tribe. So that stigma is, which is almost like a banishment, it's really a negative stigma. So always, it's best for people to have counseling before and after and during the marriage, because if things got that bad, then you gotta say, well, what makes it that bad? And because sometimes this is for me personally. And I said it in one of my teachings not too long ago, when Moses and dealing with Korah. You can share power, but you can never share authority. In a household, you have a certain type of authority that man only has. It's not a dual authority. It's only one authority. Now, you definitely share the power. You're both working together to build something up and build a nice edifice. But when you share authority, then that's the authority no longer exists with power. So, and that's when we go into my talk, we talk about vows and stuff like that. And a lot of times people get upset, but that's not man coming up with that. That's written in the book of Numbers. So that's not even Moses reinterpreting law. This law coming straight from the Creator. So when you get into about the vows and stuff like that, about a woman can make, only a divorced woman vow stands by herself, but and she got married, and the husband here, so no, I can't live like that, and neither are you. So those different authorities is given by the Creator in the book, if we accept the book and as being a divine source from the Creator in His will. But we had this Love American style these days, so anything could go.
So the next thing is, and these are some of the things we were checking off. Some people say yay, nay, whatever. Today, can you write a bill of divorce on a cell phone and text it to someone? We dealing with technology and stuff now.
Actually,
so yeah.
Everything. I know we're dealing with technology. All right.
Right.
It's supposed to be something that's hers personally.
Right.
Who keeps a personal text? You say I saved this text and she saved that text. All right. But who else got that text?
Right.
Well, they transfer information from one phone to another phone.
Right.
That's so it got to be something
And
we put it in our hands. So that texting is, it's not legal at all. It's, just guys. It's guys that I guess you call it a bluff, like you're playing poker or something like that. So
right.
That's either his poker hand. I'm gonna text this here. You know what I mean? Because I want to show her that I could do without her, whatever the case is. She, but then you set a lot of people up for a lot of catastrophe if they believe that that's legit.
Gotcha.
And
yeah, because my argument with that was you can't a text can't be acceptable because a woman can have a man's code for his phone. She write herself a bill of divorce, send it to herself, and then she said, look, I got a bill of divorce here, and the man said, I never wrote that, but it's coming from his phone. You understand what I'm saying? So that's in my book, that's why that couldn't be valid,
Well, but in any event, I thought, and I'm very I have a computer literacy thing, right. And I knew way back years ago, guys used to be able to say, man, you can call from your phone, and it's like maybe 12 years ago, about 12 years ago. You can call from your phone, whenever the smartphones came out. Right. You can call from your phone, and it appeared like somebody else's phone number.
Right.
And so if people could track you with your phone, read information with your phone, hack your phone. I mean, all that, let you know that that's absurd. When you have a handwritten document out, and that's why it's a handwritten document, and even in this fast-paced society, the handwritten document is more solidified than a docket sign.
So
the docket sign is just convenient. That's why they ask you that, make sure and show this and show that and show that. Well, why you need all that? Because it's a doubt with the docket sign, more so than you actually notarizing and writing something down.
Gotcha. So then that'll lead to my next question. So let's say you and let's say like a person and a sister got married through a civil marriage, go downtown, they do that, but they're in this way of life, right? The man doesn't write a bill of divorce. They're going through divorce proceedings. They're separated. Can that woman move on while the separation is happening, but she does not have a written bill of divorce that he wrote, or she does not have a divorce from the court? They're separated, though. They might be living separate.
Well, I'll use myself for an example. First, right. That way people can't say I'm talking about anybody else. Myself, I went through a divorce, all right, and not too long ago. And the thing about the divorce is this: paperwork is always there, given. I got paperwork, and then when you do a rabbinic style, you got paperwork. So and the thing is that if you don't do it now, if in this country here, infidelity, adultery, they won't prosecute you in some states. Like New York is one, Florida is another. I don't know all the states there, but you could catch them with a picture, photograph it in an adulterous affair, and they that don't count among as far as in most states. I mean, in some states, other states it's serious, but some states they don't use that as as leverage, for infidelity and that stuff. Now, but you definitely, even though they might have affairs and stuff like that, you cannot even in this country marry somebody else if you're still legally married to some previously. That's even in this country. So even though they got all these weird things going on in this country, where they got adultery, it's almost like a license to do that. If you marry and you apply for a marriage license, then you better be already divorced and not married, because they ask you, have you been married before? List all your previous marriages. So if you had another, now that you could get out of if they haven't gotten rid of, got divorced, from one of their husbands like that. And until you fully divorce, you can never really marry in this country again. And amongst people that follow the rabbinic approach, until you get what they consider a halakhic divorce, you can't say you're married, and even in that way of life, period. And they keep that record forever.
So basically you're saying that no, if you don't have a written bill of divorce from the husband, or if he don't give you that, and if you don't have a civil divorce, that you cannot move on until there is some official document.
Right.
Cannot move on until there's some official document. Okay, there was one more thing, and then I'm gonna let you go. Oh man, what was the other thing? It was right at the top of my head.
But most Israelites were settled for the court divorce,
Right.
you divorce, whatever the case. But the problem with this here now, and this I'm gonna bring this out now, just a little
Right.
bit, because we're in, captivity, all right. And I'm not trying to condone anything. I'm just bringing out a point: is that you have what they call separation.
Right.
So people get what they call a legal separation.
Right.
So now, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm trying to figure out a legal separations that, all right, you could do what you want to do, but technically you won't be able to get married, but you got a legal separation.
That's still adultery because there's no paperwork. Am I correct?
You got paperwork for a legal separation. You understand?
I don't know
So
what
what might
legal
be legal
separation
may
is.
not be immoral.
Right.
You
But
file paperwork for a legal separation.
for a legal separation, right?
Right.
But that's not a divorce. That's not a bill of divorce.
Yes, I understand that.
Right.
But people treat it just like it is. That's my point of bringing it out.
Got you. Understand what you're saying. Yeah, the legal separation, and that was the other question. Does separation mean divorce? And separation does not mean divorce, no matter how long the separation is, because you have to have a bill of once you get the bill of divorce is the document that you could show to the next person you're moving on with to say, I am legally divorced. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, well, I had to sign.
Right.
And the judge wants to see my ID too to make sure I'm me. I'm signing. Same thing another.
And the next question is, because we were discussing, can judges how do you say it? Write a divorce, let's say for a woman, right? Let's say a woman going through some things or whatever, and the judges say, we think that you guys should get divorced, or since you don't want to write it, we're going to write it. Can a judge do that? Can judges do that?
Not by our law, and I'm not sure about every state in America, but I'm saying not by our law, you cannot do it.
I mean, I'm only speaking about Torah. Right.
Okay, now, but that narrows it down. No, they can't do that, but because they want your signature on it.
Right.
That's why they have a term called aguna. Aguna could come in two ways. I'm not sure if your husband is still alive, but you married and you haven't seen him in maybe 10 years, 15 years. You have no idea whether he's living or dead. So you can't move on because you're a aguna, because you have no paperwork. You don't even have a death certificate. Now if you had a death certificate, then that's okay, you good.
Right,
you don't have a death certificate.
Right.
But they have a lot of problems with that, with even with Israelis, people that's orthodox and stuff like that sometimes, because some guys just refuse to sign, and they'd rather do the jail time and get their butt whipped, whatever the case is, whatever stuff they do to make them hard, but they're looking for them to sign. And sad as it is, some women say, okay, if he ain't gonna sign, I'm still gonna live my life.
And that puts you into the category of adultery. So it's very interesting what you said. So even in Israel, even though the judges know, or the rabbis or whoever it might be know that you should be divorced, they try every way to get the guy to sign. But if he doesn't want to sign, it's not a divorce.
That's correct.
So it goes back to what you say about the authority and the power, right? In some terms.
Yeah. It's with the man.
Right.
I mean, in America, it's kind of rough to, you know. I mean, we say, because when you say, well, we're going to talk scripture, you know, and keep it close to that. You know, we're living by this, and we're going to live by, you know, the founding fathers of this country, and the laws that's always amended and adopted from state to state.
Right. Hallelujah. Yeah, that was an interesting topic in terms of that, because a lot of times we see that people move on without that document, and that document is important, especially in our way of life, because you don't want to be found wanting with the Creator or at fault with the Creator. So that's very important.
What's even more, what's just more serious, you know, and I'm just comparing this up since you brought that topic up, just, you know, not to be much longer, is that if you have children under that situation, that makes them a mamzer.
Mamzer. Absolutely.
And, you know, and then some people might know that's the situation. So now, who's supposed to marry them? And it could be a nice individual, a good individual. I did to talk about what a priest is not supposed to marry.
Right.
And then, you know, when we talk first, we talked about near kin. You're not supposed to deal with certain, and they defined what was near kin. But then it's not, you know, one might be lust, and the other one might be love. So we're talking about the priest can't marry, and he can love this woman. She can love him. But her status makes the difference. And so especially if you're a Kohen and you marry a woman that you know, and certain thing, and have kids by him, you know, it's really, if we was living Lord to the fullest, then whether she's a virgin or not, it's immaterial. It's her, whether she's married or not. You know what I mean? You know, because the priest supposedly should be married a virgin anyway, but sometimes, you know, might not be a virgin, but she could be a widow or something like that. You know, but in any event, or a daughter that might came back home to a father's house or whatever the case is, you know, and then some other Levite might marry her. But the thing is that you're not supposed to, you know, you can have kids, and then that's why it's careful about calling people a mamzer, a bastard, because if you figure that's what they are, male or female, because most people think a bastard is only men, you know, but it's both sexes, male and female. And if you have that, then the problem gonna be who they're supposed to marry, because now the children of a mamzer gonna be children of a mamzer, which gonna be a mamzer still. And it tell you in the scriptures in Deuteronomy, I think I don't remember the chapter. When it's talking about Moab and them and like that, maybe around the same area, you know, 20-some chapter of Deuteronomy, that I think 23rd chapter of Deuteronomy, if I'm not mistaken, that even in the 10th generation, they should not enter the congregation of the Lord. And you know what I mean? Years you had to live to get 10 generations down.
So I guess mamzer will marry mamzer.
Who want that kind of brand though? You know, eventually after 10 generations, they're gonna mingle and find somebody to escape that. But I'm not saying that's why it's important for the priest to know the pedigree. That's why you gotta do the resume and research. Because you figure 4 generations we left Egypt. 4 generations, that's 200 and something years.
Right.
So 200 something years, who around remember what went down?
You're right, unless they got records of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you gotta be careful.
So this is all very interesting because I mean this discussion went on for for a good while at the break, and I'm glad you brought some light on it. And it's always good to have wisdom from the elders to enlighten us on things that we might not understand, especially with what's going on before us in terms of technology and the way things are moved and the way people move and thinking that they're really free to do something when they're really not. It's very important to get that document to everyone out there. Very important to get that document before you move on. That's the only way you are released from being together and from a marriage. All right. So Torah once again, Nasik, for your insight and for your wisdom. Praying that the Creator of heaven and earth continue to bless you and be with you. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.